So guys, it's the last weekend of Championship football before the international break. Let's go. So guys, welcome back to our weekly Championship score predictions. We've got some very interesting ones to go over today. And like I said, we do have another international break coming up, which is a little bit annoying, but fear not, we've got a lot of action to go over today. As always, all this weekend's games will be in the description down below so that you guys can go ahead and make your Championship score predictions. And if we take a look at the prediction league to the side of me, I'm currently 5th in the standing. So if you guys want to get yourselves involved, all you need to do is leave your score predictions in the comments down below. We've still got Juvest FC, who is leading the way. And then here were your guys' midweek scoreline predictions, which you got correct. So fair play to everyone who is on screen there. It was a pretty topsy-turvy one, I have to say. And before we do get into my score predictions, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We're pushing towards 30,000 subscribers, so if you're not already, hit that button and tell any of your mates who aren't subscribed to the channel already about it. But without any further ado, let's hop into this one. So starting out with tonight's game, that sees Cardiff going up against Bristol City. Now this is actually a 6 o'clock kickoff, so you guys are going to have to get your score predictions in for this one pretty swiftly, but an interesting matchup nonetheless. Both sides were much in need of a victory, and that's exactly what they got in midweek. Cardiff beating Barnsley by 3-0. It was Harry Wilson who stole the show in that one, and I've sort of maintained the same opinion about Cardiff. While they have a player like Harry Wilson, they can afford to not play all too well, and Harry Wilson can just come up with these real moments of quality. It was a brilliant goal he scored in midweek, but Bristol City looked much improved. They had hit a bit of a slump in their season. I was a little bit worried after the promising start they had made. A couple of injuries started to pile up, especially in those defensive areas, and they looked like a side who could be got at. But second half against Huddersfield, fantastic performance. Semenyo and Jamie Patterson changed that game coming off the bench. Jamie Patterson especially has been a real standout performer of Bristol City's season so far, and I could see a couple of goals being scored. Honestly, I don't think there'll be all too much in it between these two sides. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw for them to cancel each other out, and FIFA is going to agree with me. Next up then, we go to the early kickoff on Saturday. That sees Reading going up against Stoke. Now Reading, one of the most interesting sides to look into in the Championship currently. They are still top of the table, 3 points clear of Swansea in second. However, they've conceded 8 goals now in their last 3 matches, lost their last 2. The game they had in midweek against Preston was an interesting one. They probably should have had a couple of goals in that one. Lucas Jown another day puts his 2 chances away, and the same for Sonny Aluko as well. But with the current injuries that are piling up for Reading, it is a slightly weakened 11, and we have seen that impact them over their last couple of matches. I know that Ajaria, Yaku Mate and more are all going to be facing sort of late fitness tests coming into this one. But when you're looking to get your form back up and going, a game against Stoke isn't the ideal sort of fixture. They can be a really tricky side to play against. Now Stoke in midweek I did think got probably quite unlucky actually against a very good Watford side. There was quite a bit of fortune in a couple of the goals that Watford scores. So Stoke will be looking for a bit of vengeance in this one against Reading, and they have showed that this Reading defence can be got at recently. You know, McIntyre had a bit of a shocker in midweek. For a score prediction, do you know what? I'm going to go for Stoke in this one. I'm going to go 2-1 to the away side, whereas FIFA's saying it'll be a 1-1 draw. If Reading do get some of those big names back, then it could be different, but got a feeling about Stoke in that one. Next up then to St Andrews, where we got Birmingham going up against Bournemouth. Now the last time these two sides met in the Championship at St Andrews, Bournemouth put 8 goals past Birmingham. Now I'd be surprised if there were as many goals scored in this one. Birmingham have been quite the topsy-turvy side so far this season. Last weekend I was singing their praises of how good they were away at Deepdale. They created a lot of chances in that game, but couldn't follow it up in midweek. The second half, their performance levels really dropped off as they lost 2-1 against Wycombe, so not too sure what to expect from this Birmingham side coming into this one against Bournemouth, who they themselves lost their first game of the season in midweek. It was 1-0 against Sheffield Wednesday. Steve Cook's been sent off in that game, so will be suspended coming into this one, which is quite the blow for them. Obviously, he has been quite instrumental to how good they've been at the back in that back 3 so far this season. Cameron Carter-Vickers, you'd imagine, will be the natural replacement to come into that back 3, but Bournemouth, I still think have got a lot of potential to score quite a few goals this season. When Josh King manages to get himself up and going for the season, which he's not quite managed to do so far, you feel like there could be quite a bit of creativity and flair within that Bournemouth forward line. But for a score prediction, I think I'm edging towards the away side in this one. I'm going to go 1-0, whereas FIFA's saying it'll be a goalless draw. I think that'll be quite a tight game really. Next up then to Blackburn up against QPR. Both sides kept clean sheets in midweek, which I think is quite the benefit, as it's been one area where we've looked into each side and said that's probably going to be a weakness for them throughout the season. So we'll see if they can continue that sort of defensive stability coming into this game. And I don't think there'll be all too much in it. Each side sat next to each other currently in the Championship table. It's been a fairly sort of inconsistent start to the season for both sides. QPR have reacted really well to that 3-0 defeat they had against Barnsley a couple of weeks ago, and they've reacted with 2 consecutive victories. In midweek, Macaulay Bonne scoring that late winner against Derby. Blackburn are set to be without Adam Armstrong for this game once again, if recent reports are to be believed, which is quite the loss for them. Obviously, they were a little bit more limited than what we've come to expect from Blackburn in that game against Middlesbrough in midweek, but the clean sheet's probably the biggest benefit from that game. You know, defensively they had looked a little bit shaky, so to keep a clean sheet, they'll take a few positives from that one. I wouldn't be too surprised to see this game being a little bit more open though, with how each side likes to approach things. Elise Chair being one player for QPR who's really caught my eye lately, but for a score prediction, I think I'm edging towards the home side, you know. I'm going to go 2-1 Blackburn. FIFA saying 0-0, but that one really is on a knife edge. Next up then we go to Brentford against Middlesbrough in what could be perhaps the most intriguing game we've got going on this weekend. Middlesbrough have conceded just 1 goal in their last 6 matches, which in a league as competitive and unpredictable as the Championship, to have that sort of defensive consistency, you have to give it to Middlesbrough. They've been fantastic so far. Only 5 goals they've shipped, but if anyone can find their way through that Middlesbrough defence, surely it's got to be Ivan Toney. The form he finds himself in currently, it's been 10 games, 10 goals. It's an absolutely ridiculous run of form. And it's 2 very much different styles going up against each other, so I'm interested to see who comes out on top. Is it going to be Brentford's sort of fluid attacking way of going forward, or will it be Borough's rigid defensive unit? Score prediction time, I can't really separate them. Borough obviously still unbeaten since the opening day. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in this game, with FIFA back in Brentford for a 2-0 home victory. I'm going to be keeping a keen eye on that one. Next up then, we got another interesting one as Derby go up against Barnsley. Now with Derby, there never seems to be a dull moment around the club, does there? With the whole situation regarding Philip Cocu at the moment heading into another international break, you got to fear for the guy's job with this impending takeover that's set to be announced as well, and also with him having to self-isolate for this game. He's not actually going to be in the ground. Derby have struggled at home as well. That's been another particular weakness of theirs. It's only Derby and Preston who are yet to pick up all 3 points at home so far this season. This Barnsley side has been a bit of an all or nothing side so far this season. I think they'll continue to be that even without Struber. It was a fantastic result they picked up at the weekend last time against Watford, but they couldn't follow it up as Cardiff put 3 goals past them. Derby going forward, this is an area where they've really struggled so far. They've only hit the back of the net 5 times, the lowest scoring side in the league currently. For a score prediction, I'm going to fancy these two to cancel each other out in what could be another quite nervy game for Derby. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, and FIFA is going to agree with me for that one. Derby fans, let me know down below, what's your whole situation currently surrounding Cocu and the takeover? What do you make of it all? After that, we then got Huddersfield going up against Luton, another interesting matchup for the weekend. Huddersfield lost in midweek against Bristol City 2-1. I mentioned in my last video, that one reminded me quite a bit of when Preston went there. Huddersfield, listen, they play some lovely football going forward, but there is the feeling that they can be got at defensively at times. They do have moments of sort of lapses in concentration, and Luton can target those areas, who have actually had a really positive start to the season so far. It was another win for them in midweek as they picked up all 3 points against Rotherham. Simon Sluga, really good performance in that game. He was called into action quite a few times in that first half, and then the second half, James Collins wrapped things up for all 3 points. Now, I could see this one being quite an entertaining, sort of lively game with quite a few goals being scored naturally. And for a score prediction, I'm going to go for quite an entertaining end-to-end 2-2 draw. Both sides have got it in to score goals, but equally to that, both defences I feel like can be got at a little bit. Josh Koroma obviously bagged another one for Huddersfield in midweek. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw in that game though. FIFA's going to say it'll be 1-1. Next up then we go to Carrow Road as we see Norwich going up against Swansea. This is going to be a big game as second goes up against third, and both sides having a really positive start to the season so far. We mentioned it on last time's video, but Norwich really seem to be growing into this season in terms of performances. I did think they got quite unlucky in the game they had in midweek against Millwall, that they didn't hit the back of the net. They actually had 27 shots in that game, but they just couldn't be their clinical selves like we saw at the weekend as they put 3 goals past Bristol City. But definitely we can see the formula and the plan is starting to fall into place for them, and Swansea so far this season also have looked like a real strong outfit for promotion, you have to say. I don't think they'll be able to much in this one. Swansea I thought looked quite good in midweek in that 1-0 draw against Brentford. If it wasn't for a couple of decent saves from David Raya, Swansea could have picked up all 3 points from that one. We saw Andre Ayew get on the score sheet once again. That's now 5 goals he's got for the season. He's no doubt going to be Swansea's talisman going forward. Score prediction time, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Swansea I think can be quite strong away from home, but Norwich will ask a couple of questions of their defence. I'm going to go 1-1. FIFA's going to agree through with me. Next up we then go to the City Ground as Nottingham Forest take on Wycombe. Now there was the feeling that Forest sort of got like a get out of jail card in midweek. They actually won that game with the last kick of the game. Lyle Taylor with a really cheeky penalty in the dying embers to go on and pick up all 3 points against Coventry. However, Wycombe much improved as of late. They are unbeaten now in their last 3 matches. Who would have thought the introduction of Akinfenwa would make such a difference to them? But they've looked like much more of a solid championship outfit. Kashket causes all sorts of problems. He runs for days, doesn't he, off the shoulder of Akinfenwa. That's been quite a nice partnership moving forward so far. And with this Forest defence, which has been a little bit shaky at times, you know, it's a lot of new players that are trying to gel together, there will be opportunities that Wycombe will get from this one. But on paper, I still think that Forest have got a fantastic side. It's just about finding a system to get the best out of all these players. Like if you look at the forward four that were on action for Forest in midweek, they had Joe Lolly, Luke Freeman, Anthony Knockout and Lyle Taylor. That quartet of players there should score goals for days in the Championship, but they just seem to be a little bit restricted at the moment. The vast majority of the Forest games so far this season have been fairly low scoring, and I'd probably back whoever scores first in this one to go on and win the game, so it does have the sort of 1-0 feel about it. I'm going to go 1-0 Forest, but I wouldn't be all too surprised to see Wycombe snatch something from it. FIFA's going to say it'll be 2-0 Wycombe. Next up then we got Rotherham going up against Preston as Preston look to maintain this almost flawless away record that we've got in the Championship. 5 games, 4 wins and 1 draw, all our 13 points coming away from home so far this season. Obviously midweek it was a terrific 3-0 away performance at Reading, and this one's going to be a little bit of a different one. I thought that why we played so well in that game against Reading was because they allowed us space to get in behind that defence. They played quite a high line and we were able to exploit them from those wide areas. Against Rotherham, I expect them to be a little bit more compact as they're going to be looking to bounce back from 2 consecutive defeats. That win against Luton in midweek, there wasn't all too much in the game. They did have quite a few chances, and one thing that we did pick up on our last video was Rotherham tend to start matches really strong and just fade a little bit as we get into the second half. So I think that it's going to be in the second half where Preston are really going to have to look to get at this Rotherham side. And there have been real positives from our away performances recently. Obviously Emil Rees now off the mark for the season. He also won a penalty in that game against Reading. Paul Huntington coming back in from the cold. It was quite a rare clean sheet that we picked up in midweek, but him and Jordan Story did really well together. And obviously in midfield, Ryan Ledson, who continues to pull the strings for us. Score prediction time. I'm going to back Preston to continue this impressive away record. I'm going to go 2-0 to the away side, whereas FIFA saying it'll be a 1-1 draw. And then we see Sheffield Wednesday going up against Millwall. Now if you want to see my reaction to Sheffield Wednesday having their points deduction cut in half, then check out yesterday's video. But that's got to be massive news going around the club and actually gives the players a bit of a weight off their shoulders now. Obviously they're no longer on minus points and could have the opportunity this weekend to go off the bottom of the Championship. Tough game though up against Millwall, who reacted quite well to that 3-0 defeat they had at the weekend last time out. A goalless draw against Norwich. It was very much the performance that they were in need of, a good resolute defensive one where, albeit they probably didn't have as much going forward as they would have probably liked to, but a point at Carrow Road is nothing to be sniffed at. Sheffield Wednesday may just turn out to be this sort of side this season where they drop points in the games we expect them to win and they pick up points in games we expect them to lose. That was the case at the weekend, and from their last few sort of winnable matches, and then in midweek they went ahead and picked up all 3 points against a very good Bournemouth side who are unbeaten so far. This is the sort of game where I don't think there's going to be all too much in it. I feel like I predicted a lot of draws this weekend, but this is another game where I could see it heading down that similar sort of avenue. I just feel like with that point deduction getting reduced, it'll give the players such a boost around the club. I'm going to go for a draw in this one though. I'm going to go 1-1 with FIFA saying it'll be 2-0 Wednesday. And then to round off today's video, we got Watford going up against Coventry. Now this is a Watford side who have been scoring a few more goals lately. That was one of the things that we highlighted that they need to do a little bit more of if they want to be challenging for the top 2 this season, but they have now scored 7 goals in their last 3 home matches, and it is up against a Coventry side who seemingly at the moment need to be scoring like 2 or 3 goals if they want to be winning matches, just because of how many goals they're conceding. That's now 10 goals they've let in their last 4 matches. Now they did get a little bit unlucky, I thought, in that game in midweek. We just touched on it there against Forest. They lost it with the last kick of the game in what was a pretty soft penalty that they gave away, and they did have their real moments of quality when they did go forward. This is a Coventry side who will score goals, however keeping the balance has been the different issue. You get the feeling that things are starting to click for Watford going forward, and for a score prediction I think I am edging towards the home side. I think they'll just have a little bit too much quality in this one. I'm going to go 2-1 Watford with FIFA saying it'll be 2-0 to the home side. But guys, there we have it. There are all my score predictions for what I see happening this weekend in the Championship. So as always, do get your your score predictions in the comments down below and leave all your thoughts as to what you think is going to happen this weekend. It's going to be an interesting one. But other than that, thanks so much for watching, guys. So if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and please do subscribe for a bit of regular Championship content. Like I said, we are now heading towards 30,000 subscribers, so if you could help out towards that, that would be massively appreciated. But other than that, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.